If I could tell you just one thing, presented by me, Mel Noakes.
And me, Max Fellows. If I could tell you just one thing is a brand new event industry podcast brought to you by Elevate.
It's where industry leaders write a letter to their younger self and consider what wise advice they would give themselves now if they only could. Our discussion is based all around this letter. Be prepared for refreshingly honest, sincere conversations and some wise words of wisdom.
This podcast is powered by Wanda, an independent specialist creative events agency who are reimagining what's possible across the business experiences. And we hugely appreciate their support in bringing this series and podcast to life.
Our next guest is the incredible Sarah Jane Benham, or SJ as we know her better. When we recorded this episode, SJ was the managing director of Crew Live and she's now the CEO. Crew Live is an event staffing and entertainment specialist agency, and they're all about providing authentic brand ambassadors for entertainment and event implementation worldwide.
SJ first joined the agency as a booking agent for a 2-week stint, and 4 years later was the managing director and has been there ever since. She has now just been promoted to CEO and is currently spearheading global expansion of the business.
What an incredible conversation. It was one that was inspiring both in terms of SJ's growth and success, but equally her vulnerability. It had us on the edge of our seats listening intently. You won't want to miss a second of this one.
So, for those that don't have the pleasure of knowing you as well as we both do, please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself.
Sure. So I am SJ, Sarah Jane. I'm the managing director of Crew Live. And do you want to know a bit about Crew?
Sure.
Yeah, why not? That's why we're here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we're a global live engagement agency and we specialise in the provision of authentic event staff for brand experiences. We are 18 years old, we're independent, there's about 17 of us full-time currently, but we scale up to about 50. We work with creative agencies and direct to brand too, so the likes of Visa, Nivea and Heineken. And still working with some of the same clients that we did since day one. So I think that's testament to our reputation, I think.
Yeah.
We're also Campaign Staffing Agency of the Year. Whoop, whoop.
Yeah.
Get that in.
Threw that in at the end.
Staying with Crew for a minute, I mean, one of the things that I love about Crew is the ethos behind it about being a home for creatives and performers. And obviously, we know a little bit about your background, having dived into your letter and being the friends that we are. So how has your experience, having been a drama student and a performer, shaped some of that vision for Crew?
Well, the vision was always there from day one for a start. So we were formed to introduce a different set of values to the industry, and they were values really simple, actually, just to provide a service of excellence to both the staff and clients alike. So the values have always been there. Look after your people, look after your people. You have happy people, happy clients. And that very much became sort of our guide and our North Star, if you like. So absolutely everything that we do, from the way we answer the phone within 2 rings, or how we respond to an email, how we troubleshoot, it was always, is this a service of excellence, both our staff and clients alike? So that has always been like day one. Look after people, pay them well, faster than anybody else, give them all the tools that they need in order to be awesome at their job, right? I don't think that anyone wakes up in the morning and goes, you know what, I'm going to mess this one up for them. Like, you want to do a good job. So it's just about making sure that, one, you've picked the right person for the right brand. There's fans engaging with fans, but also that you've given them everything that they need. And you've built some strong relationships there, trusted relationships. So that's always been there since day one. But to go to your creative point, so my background, I used to be an actress. I went to a university called, or a drama school really, called Bretton Hall. So this isn't RADA. It wasn't your traditional drama school. It was very alternative and very creative. So we would do immersive, site-specific theatre. So lots of random memories I have of, doing all sorts in trees and woods and in a dilapidated mansion. But absolutely amazing. And that was where I met my sort of, I guess we were just a bunch of creative misfits that all came together, and they are 100% like my lifelong friends now. But when I graduated, I needed to supplement my income when I was resting. And so that's when I discovered the world of brand experience. I had no idea that this industry even existed. Not a clue. And I don't think it was called that back then. It was like promo.
I remember promo stuff was like the thing.
Yeah. But it was great because it meant that I could supplement my income between gigs. And I was, in my opinion, I feel like I was successful at the time. Like I was making money. You wouldn't know any of the shows that I did at all. But I got to tour the world and I was making a living out of doing the thing that I loved. But there were lots of times in between the gigs, lots of resting. And that's when I discovered this world. And it was amazing. I found myself surrounded by like-minded creatives, actors, dancers, performers, artists, you name it. And it very much became like a new community of mine. And so when I joined Crew, I just briefly tell that story, I guess. I was working in the field for Crew and other agencies, and Tom, who's the founder of the business, Tom Eatonton, he had just secured an amazing contract with Jack Morton, still working with them to this day, and it was for Hyundai for the World Cup in 2010. And he needed an extra pair of hands to help out.
Here you are, 15 years
I know, exactly.
Running the show.
So, I interviewed, I got the job, like 2 weeks it was supposed to be. And then, 3 years later, became MD. And we grew the team. At that point, I think we grew it from 3 to about 30. And I think the transition from letting go of the acting to being in this world was that it just felt so similar. And I felt like I could still be a part of that creative community. And better still, you can help them continue to do what they do best by helping them financially, supporting them and giving them roles that they could do with their eyes shut. And it was very reciprocal. It worked really well for us too. So there's been amazing success stories, and it's very much sort of, I guess, a Crew community now, because there have, bigger than Crew, there are Crew marriages and Crew babies. And
you're actually still a black.
I was going to go more Love Island, but maybe
Crew Love. We should do Crew Love.
Crew Love.
So there's
Trademark.
there are flat shares. There are, lots of highly successful actors who have started their career at Crew or gone through it at some point. So, that's what I love about the creative side of things. So.
You say the values piece and the answer to Mel really authentically and really passionately. And I've known you for a while, and we've had a joke about the acting thing in previous. But it just comes across so genuine, and I think that's really special and really nice. And then something you mentioned there, and we'll go kind of almost back a bit further, but you mentioned that leaving acting into Crew and that thing of what success was and having to leave acting behind.
Yeah.
Do you feel that it's a natural progression? Do you feel that it's a shift in careers and it's not necessarily the success you once thought, but is now?
No, 100%. I wanted to be an actress. And that's what I thought I wanted at 18. That was a thing that pushed me, that gave me, to be honest, the feeling that I've got right now, pushing you out of your comfort zone.
Leaning into discomfort is what we've now labelled this as.
100%. Gets your heart beating. You start thinking, why would I do this? Why would anyone put themselves through this? There's enough going on. Like, why would you do this? But then that feeling you get afterwards, it's just like, there's not a word. Is there a word for it? That buzz, and like post show, that kind of come down. It's so good. And so I tried to seek that out my entire life. And I think that what I've done is I've just replaced it with pitching, which is terrifying. Replace it with pitching. And also sometimes when I'm speaking, if there's like a big company, if I'm honest, like when we have to do like want to do big company days or like team building sessions, that for me, success is making them feel like they're part of something bigger. They know what the vision is, what the purpose is all about. And sometimes I can put a bit of pressure on myself to be this super inspiring like leader. And actually, like, I don't know why I do that, because we always have an amazing time afterwards. But it is that kind of putting you out of your comfort zone. And afterwards, I'll be like, that was good. I enjoyed that. I need to do more of that. So yeah.
I think everyone has that feeling then, hey, of that nervousness, of the pressure putting yourselves on. So the letter that you did write, which is amazing, and we all thoroughly enjoyed kind of reading it, I suppose opened you up in a way of a bit more about you from, younger kind of you, and being the daughter of a landlord. And tell us a bit about your growing up, I suppose, and that kind of schooling and who you were as a person and how that's kind of grown, I suppose.
Thank you for asking that question. And also thank you for this opportunity, because the whole thing was so therapeutic.
Was it good?
Really good. Really good. You never...
The therapy bill comes later, by the way.
Yeah, no. It was, you rarely stop to pause and look back and go, that's why I'm like this today. That's where that came from. And of course, at the time, you don't know it. You only know it when you look back anyway, in hindsight. But okay, so I guess it all started being sent to boarding school at a super young age. So the reason I went there to begin with, me and my three other siblings, is because my parents were landlords and landladies. So they ran Irish pubs and we lived upstairs. So it's quite a unique upbringing. And the school was set up well over 200 years ago, initially as a charity. So it's a licensed trade charity, and it was supposed to be a safe haven to get publicans' children out of inner city London, in my case, give them some fresh air, surrounded by nature, give them a private school education. And so my parents jumped at the chance. And so I went from the age of 7 through till 18, my entire career.
Wow.
But I knew how lucky I was to be there, and I knew that wasn't the norm, 100%. Like Monday to Friday, life at school, amazing, absolutely incredible, but it was a world away from my weekends. And my weekends were fun too. They were colourful in a different way.
In your letter, actually, I get a real sense of your dad and the kind of character he was.
It's absolutely incredible. Yeah, my mum and dad. So if you imagine, like some of my youngest memories are working in the family business. So my dad, for example, like he was a landlord. He would always be in a 3-piece suit, pocket watch, stood at the end of the bar, like giving everybody a warm welcome, made everybody feel super special. And I think what I learned from him is that, I call it now, a social chameleon. So he could just adapt. He adapted so easily, and he could talk to all walks of life. But also, it was my first experience and exposure to creating an experience. And I could say that now, looking back. But at the time, I had no idea. But what they were doing was creating that warm Irish welcome, that traditional feel. You had my mum, who's like the hardest working grafter I've ever met in my life, ever known in my life, with the highest of standards. But it was 24/7, and it was intense. So that going to school was just the most incredible opportunity. And so I was like, I'm going to make this count. I have to make this count. And almost sort of, if I'm honest, like a sense of, I deserve to be here, and I'm going to make sure that everyone knows, to myself and others, that I deserve to be here in this chance, and I'm going to make something good out of it.
That's quite unusual. Sorry to interrupt. At that age as well, to have that self-awareness of, I know I'm lucky to be here, and I'm going to make the most of it.
Yeah.
Your peers at the time similar, or went a bit off? Because I know quite a few people that have gone to boarding school, and it seems to be kind of get one extreme or the other, in that those that go off the rails, or those that kind of really go at it and lean into it and try and make the most of it because they know the opportunity.
Yeah. Well, there were a bunch of us who came from similar backgrounds. So I think the boarding school allows for about 200, and they were either army children or children of pub owners. But everybody else were local day students in Ascot. So I think for me, and no one ever made me feel that way, ever. But I felt that this was an unusual environment for me to be in. And I think it was just the contrast. And I could just tell that this wasn't a natural environment, and that I'd been given this opportunity, and I needed to make it count. So I, from a very young age, it was about resilience. Because you have to figure out age 7. Like, I know I don't want this to be a pity party at all as well, because I wanted to be there. It was incredible. But you have to work out quite quickly to how to read a room, build relationships, be independent, and build resilience. And I made it work for me. It worked really well for me, and I made incredible friends. I said yes to every opportunity without hesitation. And I think that's where, I talked about that kind of spark, that thing, when you put yourself out of your comfort zone, that's where the growth came. And again, it's only really looking back at this. I didn't know that at the time. I wasn't articulate enough to express that, but I can see it now looking back.
And you can only imagine, right? At 7, like, we've all got kids in this room, and yours are coming up to that sort of age, and you just think about, God, a 7-year-old trying to understand those kind of life skills that, frankly, even adults are trying to really master as well. It takes real strength of character. And you said something there about saying yes. Knowing you as I do, and obviously seeing the letter as well, and the things, that sense of saying yes and pushing yourself out your comfort zone, and something I talk a lot about, no growth ever came from being comfortable. But this sense of saying yes to everything is a real trait of yours, actually, and quite an unusual trait, because for a lot of people there's that sense of nervousness, or will I mess up, or will something. But you're all yes.
Yeah.
You go for it. So where has that yes taken you? Because it's taken you to some interesting places, but has it ever been a negative? Because we also talk about people having some challenges. So there's the
100%.
yin and the yang of that.
The yes got us to where we are today. It gave us the growth. We went to the opening of an envelope. Like, we would be at every industry event. None of you would have seen me there. The yes.
I think I did.
You did. We were doing it together.
I think I was doing the same thing. Yeah.
And it's tiring, but it gave us the growth, and it helped, build our brand awareness, and helped us work out our own set pieces, and how we want to present ourselves.
But also for you privately, it took you to some of your life experiences are bonkers.
I think I know what you're trying to. So when I was younger at school, it was that. Do you want to take part in this experience on this tour ship where you would sail in? I remember being tied to a mast, sailing in on a tour ship, sailing into France. And it was,
as you do,
nuts. But there was,
I'm lost on this one. I'm like, wow.
There was there was an opportunity where I got to interview as a competition to go and have an exchange trip to Canada, a school exchange trip in Vancouver. I think it was about for 6 weeks. I must have been 14. And there was just no hesitation. I'd be like, yeah, of course I'm going to go for that. And I'm probably going to get it. I just had this self-confidence and belief. And I think it was all down to that kind of proving to myself that I deserve to be here, and that making it count piece.
But that is incredible, and that confidence, that's trying to find the question to ask, really, because I don't necessarily think it's natural to be so pressure, and I put a lot of pressure on myself in order to perform or to do certain things, but to do it at that age, it's remarkable to do. Mel asked, has there ever been any downsides to it? And I'm interested now, as a very, very driven then 14 or throughout your kind of younger years and things, driving you to be the best. Were you the best in class, or in terms of like academic things like that?
I think I was pretty average.
Okay. We don't like that word here.
I'd like to just say for the record, there is nothing average about
yeah.
I think, actually, I did struggle a little. I am dyslexic. I don't think you ever lose being dyslexic, but you learn ways of.
And it's a superpower.
It is, right?
Yeah.
It is. So I never felt that held me back. In fact, I got extra time in exams. So at a young age, I had that drive, but you also lose it, unfortunately, a little bit. I think I wish I still had some of that. And I think as you get older, the stakes are higher, you have more responsibilities, the fear starts to creep in, you got more to lose. And so I could learn a thing or two about my younger self for sure. But to answer your question about challenging times, challenging it in terms of what was the question? Saying yes too much?
Yes, there's a yin and a yang.
Yeah.
So whilst there's obviously led you to some incredible positive things and some incredible things, has there ever been a negative side to that?
Yeah, I think there has, but I feel like I've come through that. So to the point where I don't have to say yes to everything now, and it's great. It's so good. I answer to very few people. I have, full autonomy. I could be more selective and respectful of my time. So the negatives are you have no time. You have no social life. There's a trade-off. Things have to give. So some of my friendships fell by the wayside. We still have great friendships now, but I didn't have as much time for them. I felt like at the time I couldn't carve out as much time. It was kind of like a all or nothing thing. Just go all in on the moment in time that I'm in. From a business perspective, though, we don't apply that same, just for the record, say yes to everything. We learned a few years back that we had so many clients, such a long tail. We started to qualify better. We put minimum spends in place and varied criteria in order to take on a client. And what we found is that we were producing better work. So we had less clients, but we were more profitable. The team were less spread thin, less overtime hours, which is brilliant for so many reasons, for everybody, well-being's point of view, but also financially. Now we will often politely decline. But I can't say whether if I knew that piece of advice when we first started out, whether I would have applied it back then. And I think the truth is I probably wouldn't. Like, we are where we are today because of that hard graft, because of that grit. But I don't expect my team to do the same thing. And that's should be made really clear. I try to model a better lifestyle and life balance now. And that's something I'm really proud that we can do.
Do you... Probably a direct, and you can tell me to bugger off here if you'd like to, in terms of that, and only because of the environment we're in at the moment, especially our industry and younger people coming through, challenged with certain talent in terms of nurturing it in, the right talent, things like that. Do you think that there is a bit of fear factor around that hard work, or even talking about it, and that maybe that yes piece to an extent of that just... Yeah. Going beyond and having to work harder, leading to success quicker? Or do you think we're just in different times and actually it's not relevant?
It's really hard to answer that because I want to protect my team as well. I don't want them to burn out. I feel very responsible. And in recent times, so post-pandemic, 21 was still going through it, but we had our biggest year on record. It was absolutely incredible, but it was also the most operationally challenging that we have ever faced. And at that point, I think the business had right-sized about 5 of us at that point. And we had to scale from 5 to 50 over the matter of about 6 months in a world of limited resource. And it was just the most stressful time. And off the back of that year, I remember thinking, I will never, ever put anyone through anything like that again. And it was, out of our control to a degree. We scaled as quickly as we could, but we were rebuilding our business whilst, having to deliver these contracts for our clients. I'm very grateful for them. But in terms of, and also to that point, lots of people I hadn't actually met in person that I'd recruited on the team on a permanent basis. So I was mindful that I was asking a lot, and trust doesn't come overnight. You've got to build that. And so I was, trying to tell them, this is not a reflection of who we are. Trust me. Trust me, this is not normal business. This is not how it normally runs. And so, that was really difficult. So I think when I'm answering your question, I feel like, it's more of like a responsibility for them that they don't have to go through that. But what will the outcome be for those individuals when, it's a 9 till 5
it's a really
mentality? Time will tell.
We've had a lot of these sort of chats in our industry, haven't we? Of like, just because we earn our stripes in one way or another doesn't necessarily mean we have others to do it. But at the same token, in our industry, kind of, you have to put the work in because that's how you learn, and it's 100%. Finding the right balance to do it. Because I think all of us would say that certainly in our younger days, maybe the balance wasn't there. And you talk a little bit there, SJ, about some of the challenges and challenging times. I mean, obviously, we're Elevate, we're a mentoring program. We're all about leaning on people. Who are the people that you lean on in those challenging times, and where do you go to get your support?
Who do I go to? Tom, actually, the founder of the business. I have full autonomy of the business day to day, but I will go to him if I need sort of a sounding board and his advice. So he would be my go-to. There's an amazing trainer that we work with. Shout out to Chris Merrington. He's absolutely fantastic and was really pivotal to the growth of our business in terms of our mindset. And how every deal was not a good deal. Yes.
So it's really interesting to hear, because I think a lot of people assume, and interestingly, we've talked about this to one of our other guests recently, was you get to the top and you've got all the answers and you know what's going on and you don't need any support anymore and you've got all the advice. And obviously you've got quite a few different people that you lean on in different things for different reasons, which is quite reassuring, I think, for people, especially when you're more junior and going, oh, when I get to the top, I'll know it all. We don't.
No. No.
We really don't.
Especially during the pandemic and coming out of that. No one knew any of the answers. I do get a lot of my advice also from the team, like fresh eyes. I'm a little bit more mature than some of them, so I can learn a lot from them too. But yeah, Tom's the CEO, and he is always there for me if I need to run something past him. But we have access to a lot of information too now, more than I had growing up. The number of different podcasts that are out there, sort of to self-educate and support. I will listen to a lot of podcasts in a week. A lot. Mm-hmm.
Any favourites other than our one, obviously?
Obviously, other than yours. Mine's mixed. I love Stephen Bartlett.
Love Stephen Bartlett.
Obviously.
Big fan.
Also Mary Portas. She does one called The Kindness Economy and Beautiful Misfits. Fern.
Good old Fern.
Cotton. Happy
Talked
Place.
about her earlier, yeah.
Love her. So I think it's quite balanced.
And there's a nice holistic mix of kind of business and self-awareness and
100%.
care and...
Yeah. It's a real testament, because I think that's the other thing, and something that comes through at Crew, and certainly from knowing you, is you really are like whole self. It's not just about, right, I turn up to work and I put on an armour. It is really much about all of you, and it's lovely to see that reflected in some of the places you go.
Yeah, and actually I think that's also a challenge in the same way, because when you are super passionate about something, this is not just talking about myself, talking about the wider team, when things don't go to plan, you can take it really personally. And something that every now and then I'll remind the team of, and myself, is we're not saving lives. You know, when it gets really stressful because you really care about what you're doing, every now and then you just need a little reminder, we're not saving lives.
Yeah, one of my old bosses says it's PR, not ER.
Yeah,
like
perfect.
That is good. Yeah. With the career, we're talking about success a bit and things like that. You have, almost taken a traditional route where you've come in at the bottom, if you like, and there's nothing wrong with that, and kind of gone through the ranks, fairly quickly and successfully. So credit to you. In that time, what is it that you have, I suppose, or that's helped you kind of achieve that, whether it be a mindset, or we've talked a bit about having kind of mentors or coaches, champions, that progression and your career, if you like, the kind of the last 6-7 years?
Definitely. There's no doubt. I have a growth mindset. That's what excites me. And I know that not everyone has that. So that's definitely a driver for me. Seeking out that growth area, pushing you out of your comfort zone. But I've been doing the role now for a number of different years. But we have to stay on the top of your game. You have to be innovative. And over those years, we've launched TSAC, which is our international group, Crew Talent, which is the entertainment arm. There's always something that we're working towards and launching, like new initiatives. So you do have to, tweak and polish and continue to work on it. That answers your question?
Yeah, it does. I think it's interesting. And as you then are in this position of more seniority, then we talk about sending the elevator back down and then kind of with the team and helping support them as well. So,
So, SJ, obviously growing up as the daughter of a publican, you saw these really entrepreneurial sort of spirits in your parents and being going into acting and having to sort of sell yourself, if you like, versus a business. And I know we've talked about this a lot sometimes, like how you be an individual behind a business. But you went from a 2-week internship to MD in 4 years. I mean, That's kind of not a normal trajectory for someone. So do you think this entrepreneurial spirit has always been with you and has been something that you've learned from a young age, or was it something that you just saw the opportunity and in your characteristic SJ way went, yes? How did that come about?
Seek out the opportunity, 100%. I was also in a really privileged position, sat next to Tom and Ben, who's one of the other directors, just learning from them every day. But it does take time. It was something that Tom would say to me is like, act as if. So it's always about playing the next role that you want. So when you turn up in a room, you be that person that you want to be. Model that behavior, and you start to believe it. You start to have confidence in yourself. And when that opportunity presents itself, or create that opportunity for yourself, rather, it's a no-brainer. Like you should be that role because you're already being that role. So I do feel like I was, I had a great opportunity. I think I spotted a great opportunity, and I found it really fun. That's the most important thing. You've got to find the fun. I was passionate about it, and I was driven because I could see that I was helping to grow this business. And so progress, so important, seeing that progress and realizing it. But you've got to find the fun.
I love that. We just interviewed Jonathan Emmons for the podcast. He joined us as well and talked about this sense of creativity and fun and playfulness. And it's really lovely to see that characteristic here as well, that sense of, and you say in your letter, actually, I get paid to do something I love, and I still am. Years later.
Yeah. And
do you think that's directly attributed to the success?
In terms of me having fun, I had fun from day one.
Well, maybe that is in terms of what's accelerated that success.
Yeah, 100%. And I think trying to emulate that with the team, like you can't force the fun. They've got to
forced fun for event professionals. Our worst nightmare.
They're creating their own, our own culture, if you like. And someone said the other day, and I just absolutely love this, Chanel on our team, she said that she never gets that Sunday evening icky feel.
Yeah.
I was like, yes.
The Monday fear kind of thing. Yeah.
It's like, this is it. We've got it right. Whatever we're doing, just keep doing it.
Keep doing it.
So yeah, and I think, also, I know we've talked about this before, but time really is the most precious commodity we all have. And I tell the team all the time, I will never take for granted how much they choose to spend at work and with us. And so I just think that if it's not fun, then life's too short.
We talk about, and we're talking about success a lot, and I'd like to ask you, I've got a question first, and I'm going to come back to a success one, but whilst it's been positive and you have demonstrated real kind of persistence and entrepreneurialism and things like that, what are the more challenging sides to it then, perhaps, that people don't know about?
The other side of the story.
Yeah, precisely.
The sacrifices, 100%. And there's a trade-off. I think I've talked about friendships, not having enough, carving out enough time for them. In hindsight, I wish I did. But also, not a lot of people know that I took a really short amount of time for my maternity. And in hindsight, I can look back and I can say that wasn't right for me. I regret that. And actually, it's only recently that I can say that, because I couldn't find the right words to articulate, because by saying that, I was saying I was wrong. I was like, you're
Plus the layer of pressure as being a mum.
Yes, 100%.
Which,
So just to talk a bit about that then. So I wanted to go back. I wanted to go back because I love my job. Absolutely love my job. And it became such a huge part of my identity. I think to the point, someone asked me the other day, like, how are you? I went, I'm good. Crew's up 10% year on year. They were like, that's great. But like, how are you? I didn't ask about crew. I asked about you. And our identities have just become so blurred over the years. But going back to that time, like, I wanted to be at crew. I felt like that's who I was, and I needed to go back early to protect this thing that I built and helped build over the years. It was another baby. And also my family setup, I was the higher earner in our marriage. So on paper, it also made sense for me to go back. And I wanted to, and I told everyone I was going to do it.
So no turning back or changing your mind.
100%. And my sister at the time tried to talk me out, and I was like, I can do this. But no one prepares you for when baby actually comes. And I remember so I took 6 weeks. So you've got 6 weeks of feeding your baby, holding your baby, pushing your baby in the pram. Like, you're always with your baby by your side constantly. And then I remember leaving the house, walking to the station in a complete daze, and just like not knowing what to do with my hands. And I sat on the train, and I had this moment of panic where I looked out the window and I thought I must have left her on the side. Something was missing.
Because I haven't got the pram in hand.
Yeah, I've got nothing. She wasn't there. She was missing. And so my whole body was just screaming at me like, this is a bad idea. Go back. Listen to your instinct. But I kept going on that train. I saw my decision through, and something really weird happened when I got, like, the moment I walked over the threshold of the office, I became MD instantly. I was like my MD hat on. And it was like playing a role almost. It didn't feel real. It was kind of out of body. And I was fine, completely fine on the surface. But, we reconfigured the office so that I could express. And, I'd often call Simon and be like, Delilah's hungry. He'd be like, how do you know? I'd be like, I know.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. So it took a long time to sort of adjust to that. And it was a very jarring experience looking back. And I think the main thing is, and this is why I guess I didn't want to sort of admit it until recently, but I worry that, like, will I ever get that one-on-one special time with my children again? And, who knows? I'll probably make that happen. Yeah. Like, maybe I can take every summer holiday off, take 6 weeks off every year, get myself to a position where I can make that happen. But I worry that I've missed out on something that I can't get back. And so I'm sharing that because it's a hindsight thing. And actually, who's to say that I'd be in this perceived level of success now if I didn't do that? Like, who's to say I would still be in this position? Like,
it's really interesting.
Thank you for sharing, Higgs.
Yeah. But now my it's an incredible setup, and something I definitely want to share. If you guys are aware of Event Cycle, who are incredible,
huge friends of Elevate,
amazing. So my husband now works with them, and he works part-time, term time, like absolute gold. They are all about championing flexibility and choice, which is something I like to model at Crew, and I'm really proud of now. You can work wherever you like. You only need to come into the office 1 day a week, and actually people come in more because they have the choice. I have someone working in Bali at the moment. Someone's just come back from South Africa.
Podcast on tour.
100%.
You can be the first guest.
Yeah.
Lovely. So that works for our family. We've found a pattern that works for our family, and it does break the mold a little, but it works for us.
Yeah, I just want to say to what Max said, thank you for sharing, because I know it can be really vulnerable to share those things. And from the outside looking in, people will often question those sorts of decisions, and that can add to the pressure. And I know what that is. And I, as a friend as well, like, you model such a brilliant sense of balance and being there for your kids, and the humility and humanity you have really in your team. And I know it took a lot to share that. So just thank you. Because it will inspire people listening to this, I think. We've talked about it as the things we wish we knew before we were mums. So take that.
And there's also, they're awesome. My children are awesome.
They are.
They're strong, spirited.
By the way, would be the same if they were annoying. They were real brats.
But there's been no detrimental effects so far. So it's all good.
We've got last few questions, really. And my one that I was just kind of touching on before, and actually you started answering, is that what does success look like for you now? Because as a very driven individual, you mentioned maybe that's taking summers off to spend with the kids and things like that. Just wanted to kind of ask that briefly.
Success to now means life balance. Means being able to say no and being more selective and respectful of my time. Success is my team. not having that Sunday evening ick, having fun. You know, that I'm not sure if I should share this or not, but there was someone on my team recently who had an offer they couldn't refuse somewhere else. And it was almost, I won't say how much, but a huge salary increase. And I was like, I get it. I get it. Go and give it your best shot. You can do this. And we said goodbye. And she came back 3 months later. And I think for me, it didn't work out. It wasn't the right place for her. And I think for me, I think that says a lot about like the family and the culture that we've all tried so hard to create. And that makes me happy that she came back home.
Oh,
yeah.
That's a really nice way of putting it as well. And I think we forget we spend so much time at work and with these people, and that sense of family, creating that sense of family around you is such an important part to have those people that you need. So I think we've got one final question for you, SJ.
Okay. We do indeed.
Which is the question of the podcast.
Exactly. And so the one last question that we wanted to ask, and the purpose of the podcast, is that what's that one piece of advice that is so good or bad, preferably good, that you need to pass it on?
I've said it before, but I'll say it again. It's act as if. So it's a piece of advice that Tom, the founder of Crew Live, gave to me and everybody within the team. Just act as if. Turn up in that person that you want to be. So model the behaviour, be that behaviour, and you will become that person or that set of circumstances, whatever it is that you're looking to achieve. Other people call it manifestation. It's not too dissimilar. But act as if really resonates with us as a team.
Brilliant. Well, from us both and everyone here at Elevate, thank you so much for sharing and taking part. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Very interesting.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Yay.
Oh, that was amazing.
That was brilliant. Brilliant on so many levels, right? And I don't know if you kind of felt the same, but in terms of not only kind of connecting with SJ, but equally in terms of getting insight into her career, but her as a person and the vulnerability that she showed as well. I mean, how
so
brave, exactly. How incredible.
And I think, you know, she talked a little bit about in the discussion around being a role model. And I think she totally is for so many people that know her. And I'm sure it's true of the team there. But I loved also seeing those seeds from her past that have really shaped who she is today, you know, being a publican's daughter, her acting career, that sense of really taking every opportunity. I got such a sense of that from SJ, you know, leaning into the yeses and seizing opportunities, but also as she's grown, learning when to say no and when to take advantage of that versus not. And I think that, you know, that's something personally I always struggle with. So just
I completely resonate. The yes piece is something that when I moved to London, when I moved to London, it was exactly that same thing. You don't know anyone, all the rest of it, and you're kind of looking for opportunities and you don't know where they come from. So you say yes. And what I think was brilliant about SJ, and I didn't know, is that self-awareness at such a young age and that appreciation, and therefore then the action and the kind of the positive outlook on them making the most of the opportunities, and that equally then kind of leading into more of these yeses and those decisions. So I think it was brilliant. And then all the way through then to an accelerated career that in the space of years becoming, you know, an MD, but the sacrifices made along the way.
Yeah, and I think it's so important, and I'm so glad that SJ shared it. You know, everyone thinks you can have it all, but that trade-off, and there's always a trade-off. There are always things that you have to sort of decide what you're doing to get to that kind of levels of success. But I also love SJ's humility, maybe is the word, sharing that sense of having to stay at the top of your game and constantly having to innovate and learn and grow and never standing on your laurels. You know, you get a real sense of energy from SJ.
Yeah.
Having done the job for so long in the same place, and she's still as passionate about it as I can imagine her being when she started the role, which is incredible.
Definitely. And throughout, there's these moments where she's perhaps lost a bit of that confidence that she has had and then kind of built it back up again. And then it culminating that piece of advice that she mentioned throughout, you know, or not throughout, but earlier. Act as if.
How brilliant
and,
is that?
you know, we have joked to the previous because, you know, we both did the whole drama school. Not that you could tell us, you know, out and out.
No, never.
Never. But that act as if, I think it's just a way of almost, she said manifest, but equally you kind of are protected because it's not the real you, because you almost have this armor. You are pretending to be something, not pretend, but do you know what I mean? It's kind of trying to...
But it's also, I think, what I loved about SJ is that leaning into stepping forward, stepping up.
Yeah.
Because I think, and we've talked about it a little bit in our industry, perhaps there's an expectation that stuff's given to you.
Yeah.
I love SJ's take on it. It's like, act as if, step forward, step into it, act as if you're already doing it, and then that will become your reality. And I love that sense of, I guess, owning your destiny a bit and crafting it. And I really get the sense that that's what SJ's done. And there's just I think so many people get so much listening out of that.
I agree.
It was just such a brilliant conversation.
I agree. And now what then success looks like for her.
Oh,
brilliant.
And it evolves. I think that's the thing that's really nice, is what looks like success and feels like success in your teens, 20s, 30s, and as you age will change. It will be different. And I love seeing that evolution that SJ really kindly shared with us, and where she's at now. And God, what a conversation.
Brilliant.
Elevate operates thanks to the generosity of our partners and supporters. To find out more about them, you can check them out via our website, elevateme.co. Together, we're changing lives, careers, and the events industry for the better.
This podcast was powered by Wonder, the independent specialist creative business-to-business and business-to-employee events agency. And a huge thanks goes to our producer and fellow Team Elevator, Pete Kerwood.